In Reality and Sincerity, F.R. Leavis analyzes three poems. First is Alexander Smith's Barbara, second is Emily Bronte's Cold in Earth, and third is Thomas Hardy's After a Journey. Then he brings out a method for preference among them. It is a trait of practical criticism. So, first we have to read these three poems that will give us better understanding of what Leavis is arguing. All these three poems are from different writers, but they have some kind of resonance with each other. Barbara, Cold in Earth, After a Journey, all seems to have a tone of melancholy. Not exactly a tone, but a theme of melancholy. Leavis says that Alexander Smith's poem Barbara is about irreparable loss. But with this theme, Smith dwells into temptation of emotional wallowing. Smith creates situation for the sake of it, for the sake of this emotional wallowing. That means he first assumes that he has to write about irreparable loss, and he just dwells into emotional wallowing. He does not care about form, feature, or tone. So his poem is centered around invocation of just one feeling, but it does not pay off as it does not use any innovative method for that. Lewis point out that phrases and attitudes here is cliched, and they do not match with reality. So it is clear that Smith's poem is inferior to other two in terms of invoking feelings. Because as reader we notice how we are being manipulated. So we will not accept authors, poets' method to control our mind. Now, Emily Bronte's poem, Cold in Earth, is a declamatory plangency. That means it seems like a speech of sorrow. It does not try to exploit our emotional for the sake of impression. It is handled with a very strong control. Cold in earth, and the deep snow piled about thee, far, far removed, cold in the dreary grave. Or the words like, sweet love of youth, forgive if I forgot thee, while the world's tide is bearing me along. Other desires and other hopes beset me, hopes with obscure, but cannot do thee wrong. We can see she is not trying to exploit our emotional. She is keeping a control over it. Lines like, then did I learn how existence could be cherished, inform us that this poem is not just about loss, but also points out strength of living with loss, after loss. Now the third poem is Hardy's After a Journey. Leavis says it should be placed above both the poems if he uses same parameters. Now this poem is not a declamatory. It is not even a dialogue. It reads like a soliloquy or monologue, but soon we realized it is self-communing. The speaker in the poem is talking to himself. Leavis says that Hardy's poem has great advantage of reality over other two poems. That means this poem relates more to reality because it represents a profound and complete sincerity. So then comes the idea of sincerity, and reality in a poem. Poem is not real. It cannot be real. It has to be metaphysical by itself to be a poem. But Lewis is practicing practical criticism, so he is looking for the things in a poem which can help him understand it more. He says that this three poems actually mirrors the personalities of the poets. Even Hardy's use of words may point out to a kind of clumsiness, but that becomes natural and inevitable once we read to the end of the poem. In Hardy's poem, is an essential element. Even the journey is done through time in forward because we cannot go back in time. So even the view in Bronte and Hardy's poems are different. The self-communing tone is established in the first four lines, and there is no change when Hardy passes from it to you. It remains lonely and lost throughout the poem. So basically, this poem is about he's serving himself, a kind of report or dialogue, and views his memories. Now, there are two things which can affect us. First is affirmation, and second is void, blankness. So, the intensity of absence or presence may affect us. The wall essay is a kind of example of how practical criticism is practiced and what do we look for. I would advise you to read all three poems very carefully and then read Leavis's criticism on that. That will reveal the strategies he uses for the search of meaning in poems.